the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
All right, we're back here on the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm now joined by a first-timer. He's decked out. You don't have to wonder about where this guy coaches high school football at here in East Tennessee. It's Eddie Spradlen. Eddie, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good, man. Thanks for having me. Always a special occasion to get to talk about the Green Devils. Looking forward to it.
I mean, you have spring practice starting for the Vols here this morning. Are you getting the itch here? I know it's cold, so does it feel like it?
I went a couple of weeks ago and went and watched UTC practice. ETSU is starting up, planning to go watch them practice next week. I'll go down there and watch Tennessee practice. So exciting time of the year. One of my coaches is on the road, and he's been to a couple different practices the past week. So it's an exciting time.
What is your off season like? Is it going to coaching clinics, learning stuff, just trying to be in the lab, like a lot of film work? What is your off season like?
Yeah, kind of in off season for me, I kind of put on a different hat because I'm privileged at Greeneville High School to have all my football kids, well, the majority of them are in a weightlifting class during the day, and that's a class that I'm teaching. So during the season, there's another coach that's in there with me during the day, so he handles a majority of that stuff. But during the off season, it's all on me during that class. So put a new hat on, and during the day, it's just getting after it and grinding in the weight room with those guys and trying to get stronger. But then we'll get ready for spring practice, and I've got all my kids in a weightlifting for the most part, so we're getting all that in. But after school, a lot of the head coaching responsibilities, you try to take those on after school hours, just so I'm focused on those kids, giving them their best during that time that I've got during the day.
Are you lifting with them, or are those days behind you, Eddie?
No, I'm not going. I'm trying to keep the energy up, and I'm the rah guy that's leading the workout. So there's no time for me to be lifting. From one guy to the next. We probably got close to 60 kids in there at one time. So it's a lot of energy in there, and somebody's got to be the bus driver. So it's got to be me while I'm in there. So I'm not getting any lift while those guys are in there.
What music preferences do you let the kids control it, or are you controlling the auxiliary board here?
I'll let those guys control that music as long as it's something that's going to get them going, and it's got to be pretty clean in there as well. So you know how music is nowadays. It's hard to find something that's don't get too a little wild in there. So right now my quarterback he runs the Caden Ball. He runs the majority of the music for us. Okay,
I love it. Anything else you've done? Any travels? Anything else you've kind of like emphasized here this offseason, getting ready for next year?
I tried to do a lot of self-study during that time. We've done I'm obviously head coach, but I also take on the role as a defense coordinator. So we've done a lot of self-study with the defense, and we've met quite a few times talking about things. Our coaches get together. I've went to a couple different coaching stuff. Clint Bearden had one a couple of weeks ago, and they talked about it, a lot of offensive stuff. So I'm always trying to anything that you can pick up. Obviously not going to go to clinics and say, oh, this is how we're going to do things. But you can always pick up, just little things that can help improve. So try to do that during the off season as well.
How much has changed from the first day with you becoming the head coach at Greeneville to now in terms of your philosophy? Is not much change, or has it gradually shifted over the years?
I think we've been successful. I've been had the privilege to be here since 2007. I've worked under 3 head coaches. For the most part, majority of my 10-year career was spent with Coach Kane Ballard. We won 4 state championships during that time. We competed for got beaten the state championship one time as well. So learned a ton from him. But we've been successful really just because of the hard work we put in as a program. It really starts with what we do in the weight room. We were able to get those guys in the weight room, and they're able to be consistent with that. We're don't want to say it's year long, but more or less it's year long. You got a couple of weeks off after football season ends, whenever that might be. Then you got a couple of weeks off at Christmas. But other than that, like I said, I've got those guys in a class during the year, and we're in there, 4 or 5 times a week doing something from, strength conditioning to speed development. And so it's a full-time a gig in there, and it's, that's the reason why we've been successful. But, when you take on the head coach, you obviously learn a lot of different things that you thought you knew before when you were assistant, but I continue to learn. This game's always changing. If you're not trying to be out there being in the front of it, this game will leave you behind. So you're always trying to pick up something new. But at the end of the day, it comes back to just working hard, commitment, and really loving on those guys. At the end of the day, everybody wants to win a dang championship, but if you're not trying to make a difference in those guys, you're not going to be successful. I'm not going to be remembered as how many region championships, how many state championships I won. All that. Everybody forgets about that stuff. Your opportunity to make a difference in 60 or 70, 80 kids every year. If you're not making the most of that, you're failing your program, your school, and your community.
I love that. Last year, Anderson County, at the very end here, Eddie, when you look at just like y'all's schedule, what's interesting is just like the high-powered offense, just high-powered week over week. From the Alcoa game on, you were rolling, and then Anderson County, who had a really good year, 14 points. What happened there when you go back and look at the tape and like in terms of offensively, like it was a close game, 28-14. What did you see on film now that you've been a couple of months away from it where you're like, man, if we had done this, or maybe that Anderson County did this that we weren't expecting as well, or did the game honestly just go kind of the way you expected in your film work getting ready for it?
Knew it was going to be a 4-quarter battle. They got a cheap touchdown there at the end. It was 14-7 us at halftime. We score coming out of the half and go up 21-7 and get a penalty for a receiver not being on the line of scrimmage. And so, we had an opportunity to start the second half being up 21-7. But, if you look back from when both those programs play each other, it's going to be a 4-quarter battle that's two of the best football teams in 4A, without a doubt, beating up on each other. So really good game. When it was a 4-quarter game, I lost a Division I receiver in the first quarter of that game. That's our big time playmaker out there on the edge. He's also starting corner. So they were able to take advantage of some of that. So, big time games like that, a kid that you expect to make big plays for you is not playing, it makes a big difference. But, really proud of my kids' effort. They battled for 4 quarters and we didn't come on top on that game, but a really good, hats off to Anderson County, top-notch programs, got really good kids year in, year out. But, when those two teams play, it's going to be a big-time battle.
When you think back to the season as a whole in 2024, which game, when you look at how the game ultimately unfolded versus your game week prep, went completely different than what you expected? What was that one game for you?
I think probably game 2 against Dobbins Bennett. You're playing 6A Dobbins Bennett, and they had beat Farragut the week 1. Really talented football team. Come in here and we were able to, we knew it was going to be a dang battle, but we were able to really take advantage of that game plan. And we beat them 35-0. I thought it was going to be more of a 4-quarter game. In that one, I had if you look back, we beat Tennessee High, another 5A school. We beat them, I think it was 60-7 game 1. We got some administration stuff didn't get taken care of how I was told it was from the school's part, and we had to forfeit that game. That starting line, that kid didn't play the next game, and so we were down a linebacker in that game. We had another injury in that game. Just some young kids stepped up in that game that really wasn't in the game plan, and we were able to come out on top against a really good football team who ended up winning that region in 6A.
Who was the most overlooked player that you're just like, when you put up just game in, game out, you were just like, the fans in attendance don't really see what he was able to do for your team in 24. Who was that kind of overlooked guy for y'all?
If you it's probably going to be an offensive or defensive lineman. Just because we're able to run the football. When you talk about what we did, you're going to talk about Zayden Anderson on offense, Carson Quillen, who was Mr. Football finalist. Caden Ball did a really good job. We had a couple young receivers in there that were probably didn't get enough attention just because how hard they played and the blocking they did. There were some sophomores. Defensively, Drew Armbrister had a tremendous year at linebacker, all-state kid. C.J. Reyes, another kid who was a defensive guy. But at the end of the day, you got kids like Brandon Iez. He was all-state offensive lineman. A lot of people didn't talk about him, but, at the end of the year, he got a lot of, postseason awards. But he's a guy that just kept on. You could pin on him to play both ways. Zorian Harris is another kid that really stepped up this year that did a really good job for us on offensive line. But, a lot of unsung heroes on that offensive line that don't get a lot of attention. It ain't a fun position to play, especially fun to practice. You're always beating up on each other. But, it's if you've not got a big-time offensive line or defensive line, it's hard to be successful at the level that we play in. And really the offseason or the out of region opponents that we have to pick up and play each year because just to get games.
Do you think it's harder to coach offensive line now than it was 20 years ago? Just because I wonder, because the Leo position is so it's so different than what it was, and the guys coming off the edge and the athleticism and most defenses front sevens is completely different. Where you have guys who would have been safeties 20 years ago are now linebackers for a lot of teams. Is it harder to coach offensive line in high school football these days, or do you think it's maybe easier? What do you think about that?
I think how we're going to do it's pretty similar. I've got an old school offensive line coach that was played at Appalachian State, and he's old school from North Carolina, and he's just tough, and he really pushes those kids hard. But like you said, the game's changed. You turn on any Saturday football or really turn on Friday night. Any game on Friday night, it's not a big old fat guys that used to play offensive line like it used to be. Everybody's athletic. If you want to be successful and contribute, you're gonna have to be in shape. And you turn back, 20 years ago, high school guys, there are a lot of kids that are unathletic could have a chance to be successful on just because they're big and getting away because you're under center running I formation. The whole we're a zone team. Those linemen got to be able to move and, got to get on the second level. And we throw screens out on the edge. So you got to be big and athletic. And but at the same time, you got to be tough. And, that's what, as a team, we got a big 5-man sled that the whole team pushes at least once a week together just to try to get that toughness, the old school, what it takes to be successful as an offensive lineman.
I mean, I went to Parkview. I don't know if you're familiar in high school in Georgia, the Lilburn area, and they won 3 straight in the early 2000s under Flo with Jeff Rancour and company. And there was Zeb McKenzie, the Matt Stinchcomb days, and those dudes. I mean, it's just kind of wild. If you look at some 2001 tape of Parkview's offensive line versus what it was, I mean, just a couple of years ago. With Mike Matthews, 5-star kid on the perimeter, and Joey Sturdivant was actually the coach at the time who played on those state title teams. It looks like a completely different sport, Eddie. Like I imagine it's got to be weird for you to like watch some old Greeneville stuff and be like, goodness, that's what we used to look like, and now it's completely different worlds.
Yeah, I've seen some, I don't know if you know the name Dustin Moore. He played at Greeneville. In probably the 90s. He played at Tennessee as well. Had some, was in some camps in the NFL. He played running back. He ended up playing tight end at Tennessee, but played running back in high school. He was 6'4", 6'5", 225, 35 pounds as a high school running back when it was under, just turn it and toss it to him.
Yeah.
I've seen some of those films, just how, different, the game is, those guys like that. And, those guys will still be successful now, but it's just a lot different. Nobody, if you try to ask a quarterback to go in under there and take a snap from a center, it don't happen. They don't do it in little league. They don't do it in middle school. And that's something you really got to, if you're going to do that in your offense, you've got to really practice it a lot. Everybody wants to get under center in short yardage situations, but you do it a lot of times. What's happening to fumbling the dang football. So, just how the game's changed, everything, snapping it from, in shotgun and everything. But, it's exciting football. This, the fans love it. 20, 30 years ago, it was about being physical and just beating each other up. It still is, but it's a little different style now.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm a big NFL guy too, and like you see kind of the Niners, and one of the things I thought was interesting, I mean, Tennessee did this too this past year, is like one of the things that made San Francisco so tough to beat during their dynasty before this bad year they just had was I think they leaned into the just tackling has kind of nosedived over the years where they're like, what if we just had a bunch of guys who are hard and a pain in the butt to tackle with Debo, Christian McCaffrey. You just have guys. I mean, they're still running fullback with Kyle Juszczyk, and like they're banking on you not wanting the contact, and guys were tackling. They just don't have as much practice time going towards tackling. Tackling is just, I don't think, what it was 20 years ago. So I think we are maybe seeing a little bit of a return to physicality with some teams where they are prioritizing guys who are just bigger, faster, and stronger, who, I mean, are just quite honestly just harder to tackle, and they're banking on those guys. And I think we're kind of seeing that a little bit because we've gotten so finesse in football that some teams are taking advantage of just that whole, we're going to beat you with speed and space and beat you on the perimeter. It's like, well, what if you don't have the dudes to match up with? We'll just run the ball down your throats because we know you're not going to be able to tackle, and we're going to get 5 to 6 yards a pop. And I think you're seeing different things. That's one of the great things about high school football is like, I mean, you're still seeing some wing tee stuff. Pigeon Forge is out here running the wing tee still, and it depends on where you look, and everyone's still running different kind of stuff, which is fun, right? Like I imagine it's a little bit more complicated for you if like, all right, here comes Gibbs with their style, and then we got another team who's running the air raid. I think Carter has done that in the past, so it's just you get a very, very different kind of look still week over week.
It's you don't get to recruit your guys in most cases, so you got to whatever fits your scheme and what you got year in, year out gives you the best opportunity to be successful. You got to take advantage of it. And we've been blessed with some really good skill kids, some good quarterbacks that can run the football. So we've been able to be successful in, running the zone stuff. But like you said, you're going to see different stuff from week to week. Like we play during the regular season, we're playing, to be successful in high school, you better be able to run the football for the most part. So that, that's what we see in our region for the most part. But then you get to, like you said, Carter come out here and they're going to throw it every down. You don't see that. And it's hard to prepare for that. It's, you try to do it during the practice during the year, but you're not seeing people just air it out like that as much. And when you do, it's a real big difference. There's an adjustment period for sure.
Yeah, high school is the only sport where you might play the Navy offense one week and then play Mississippi State's the next week, and it's just like it's a very, very different deal. Alcoa moving up to 4A. What do you think about? I mean, Greeneville, one of the best football programs in East Tennessee here for a long time. Alcoa, obviously, with their title history. Has that just crossed your mind when you're thinking about it? Like, what a battle! Like, does it excite you where it kind of gets you up? You're like, all right, Alcoa's here. Like, is that kind of how you are competitive wise?
If you want to be the best program, you're gonna have to compete against the best. And we've played them the past 2 years, a non-region game, just because in East Tennessee right now they're the measuring stick for anybody. So you want to be against them. We played 2 years ago and it was a 7-7 tie at halftime, and then we had that lightning storm and all that other stuff. And then we go down there and we play them. It's 14-13 at halftime this past year, and then Eli Graff took off in the second half and makes some really good plays. What a special player he is, and Coach Nix does a great job there. But if you want to be the top-notch program, you're gonna have to compete against those. But right now, if you talk about 4A football, it's got to be one of the toughest classes out there because you got Alcoa, Greeneville, Anderson County, Elizabeth, and Upperman's really came on. Macon County's really been good. Pearl Cones came up to 4A. So 4A is a really tough division to be in. But at the end of the day, they're coming in from 3A. But Alcoa is going to be the measuring stick, and you're going to have to play. If you want to play for that gold ball, you're going to have to play them at some point. So, a lot of different – I don't know if you've seen where the playoff system's going to change a little. But Region 1, Region 2 still going to meet in the third round. So, you got an opportunity. You're going to have to face them during the third round if you're the region champs. And, first and foremost, we want to be region champs. That's our ultimate goal year in, year out, to set you up for your best chance to be successful in the playoffs. But if you get the opportunity to play them in the third round, that's going to be an exciting game for sure. Just like it was, like last year, it's us in Anderson County. You throw them, Alcoa, in that mix. It's going to be some dang battles for some good regular season high school games.
Do you like the change? Because I understand like the what they're thinking of, just avoiding rematches, right? Like that's the main thing, is to avoid rematches. But I've heard and read on the opposite side of like just the travel implications of avoiding rematches and kind of the change. Like, which way do you lean? Do you just kind of want to wait and see how it plays out before like really having a strong opinion on it, or do you feel one type of way more than the other right now?
To be honest, you've done something for the same. Every year you're playing the same teams in the playoffs, and you're playing. We might be, us in Anderson County might have been the best two teams for every year, but we're beating each other up in the third round every year.
Yeah.
And, I know they had some guys beat up when they played in the quarters this past year when we played, or in the semis. Year before, I had some quality dudes missing in that semifinal game because you're just beating each other up. It'd be fun to play each other in a semifinal game. If it was up to me, I'd love to see there. At one point we had I think it's called the Z plan or something like that, where everybody, you got seeded 1 to 16 from, you still got an East and West, but you're 1 to 16, and you got the trying to get the best teams playing in the semifinal games. I wish it was like that. Now we're crossing, region 2 to 3 and 4 and all that. Travel is what it is. It's no different for me to travel to Upperman or to travel to Anderson County. That's not going to be a big difference for me. I mean, it is what it is. It's not that big. You're getting a bus. It's going to cost you really the same. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody can complain about all they want extra and all that, but at the end of the day, I'd love to see the best teams playing in the semifinals regardless. You see them 1 to 16 and let's battle it out. But that's not my decision. I don't get paid those big bucks to make those decisions for sure.
Final football question for you, Coach. When you look at the roster this year versus what you had a year ago, what are some key spring, summer position battles that you've got your eye on, you're excited to see play out here? And how, like, when you look at just the returning production, how good do you feel about what you've got back from a year ago?
Obviously I graduated 14 seniors that were really good football players. I Mr. Football player Carson Quillen, he's hard to, you can't replace a kid like that, but you got to. So really,
you can't do a Diego Pavia situation. You can't get an extra year.
He's that sucker don't turn 18 until he graduates. So I'd love to have him for another year, but
I'll get TSAA on the phone here, and we'll see what we can do.
If I can get him a 5th year for me, or I need to retire with him, one or the other, right?
I mean, hey.
No, but really excited to see what's going to happen at running back. Got a lot of guys that are going to compete for that job. We return, everybody that started at receiver at one point in the year is back. So really, you got Zayden Anderson out there, Taryn Clarity, guys coming back that are big-time players. Return my quarterback. Return 3 of my 5 offensive linemen. So really excited what we're going to do on offense. But you got to find out who that dude is at running back. But there's a lot of guys that'll compete for that job, and excited to see where we go from there. Defensively, it's got to be at linebacker. Lose a guy, Drew Armbrister, who's 3-year starter there for me, a 2-time All-State guy, So you got to figure out who's going to be that alpha male on defense. We were, graduated all 3 starting linebackers. So we got to find out, spring practice, who's going to be those dudes in there at linebacker. I'm really excited about who those guys are going to be. A lot of competition in there. But at the end of the day, who's going to be the alpha male that leads this defense for us? So really excited about what we got coming in spring practice. For us at the high school, we think Greeneville has got 900 kids go to school. A lot of people don't really realize how many kids go here. We think Greeneville's got a ton of kids, but it's only 900 kids go to school here. So a lot of kids play multiple sports. So spring practice for us is not going to have a lot of our kids are in spring sports from, I got a lot of baseball players, some soccer players. A lot of kids play track or do track. So a lot of guys doing other things during the spring around here. But we'll make the most of our spring practice. Really good for our offensive and defensive linemen. Hopefully some of those linebackers will get a lot of work during this time as well.
Spring break. It's right here for Tennessee. Eddie, you get your dream spring break getaway destination. Where are you going?
My situation is probably not going to be my decision with my, I've got 2, a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old, and my wife. They're probably going to decide where that ultimate one is.
But where are you? I'm giving you the call here.
For me, yeah. I like go somewhere in the mountains. I got a camper. I like to just, get on the side of a little river somewhere in a camp, in my camper where I can put out a fire and, cook some dinner on a, campfire or a
What are you
grill.
cooking?
I'm a big steak guy. I love steak.
Okay.
My kids love steak. So anytime that we can get out there and do stuff like that, we do as much as we can in that. So ultimate spring break for me would probably be just in the mountains somewhere, just relaxing. If I didn't have self-service, that'd probably be pretty nice.
Well, I know a place where you can go over there in Greeneville where there's no service and you can do the whole camper thing. Let me tell you, Eddie, this is it's not even a bone to pick, but my wife and I, we have the T-shirt to prove it. You might know where I'm going with this. The Firefly Festival we went to last year, Eddie, and let me tell you, that is the coldest I have been in such a long time. And it was like, I forgot what it was. I'm blanking on when it was, but it was, I don't know if you know off the top of your head of when the Firefly Festival is in Greeneville, but it was last year. And let me tell you, it's wild to see the amount of fireflies that just come up here at like 9 o'clock at night. I mean, it was wild to see them all come up, but man, I did not come prepared in terms of how cold it was going to be. Like, It's not February we were doing it. And you're out, there's no service. And my wife and I, when we're leaving that night, Eddie, there's no lights. Like, there's no lights. We went the wrong way, and we're in North Carolina for a little bit. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, I think we got to do a Yui here. We're going the wrong way. Have you done the Firefly Festival?
No, you must. Was it on Viking Mountain? Is that where it was?
It's one of the mountains.
Probably Viking, I'd say. A big mountain up here that does, because they always do something like that, and like up in Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg, all that. But that whole mountain range kind of runs into each other, I think. So
Cherokee National Forest. That's it.
That's in where Viking Mountain is. It's
okay.
Cherokee. So
man, you're on your own.
I've never done that, the Firefly thing. So I have to check that out.
It's wild. Like, you don't really know what you're walking into and there's a lottery system. Like, it's a big deal. Like, you're going in there and people are tailgating for this thing, and it's a whole deal, man. Like, it would be an experience. I mean, it's a thing for the whole family. But and then they casually hey, watch out for snakes and stuff. Like, I'm like, all right, man, we got no lights here. Like, I'm not built for this. Like, I don't know what I'm walking into here. Let's just see some fireflies and let's get out of here. Goodness gracious. Final thing here, and we'll get you out of here, Eddie. What's your game day routine? Do you have like any superstitions that you follow and have always followed? Is there a certain kind of a coffee you do? Are you a gum guy? Certain meal?
With me, mine probably, I used to, when I was a younger coach, I used to always go, there used to be a Waggles here, but there's not anymore. I go by the Waggles, I get a new Sentinel. I used to always get new Sentinel because they put it in there, and do that was my routine. Get that because it had all the game predictions. Now everything's advanced to where it's on the computer, and 5-star preps is really does a great job. Shout out to Big Jesse on that. So, everything's online now. But with me, the bigger the game, I'll eat a lunch. After lunch, I'm probably not going to eat anymore. Just that's probably my big superstition. A lot of times we'll get a lunch and we'll play good. I'll get in the same lunch, every Friday night until we play bad. But besides that, obviously try to wear the same, if we play good, the same coaching gears and things like that. Keep it those type of things. But, if you're going to be a coach, a lot of times you got silly superstitions that, everybody picks up, and it might be one from year to year, just something you've done that don't matter for nothing. But on that Friday night, y'all have a big night. So if it stands out, I'll try to do it again. But just, year to year, nothing really stands out.
I love it. Eddie, how do the good folks who are tuning in, Greeneville fans, Greeneville supporters, how do they support everything you got going on this spring?
We got a great community support from for our football program. Right now we're in the heart of selling some strawberries, and we've sold a ton, and it's called us the community support. And we got a jumbotron that we got a couple years ago. It's a ton of support from that. But really a ton of support for Greeneville football and Greeneville athletics. Last night our basketball team won the region title. Our baseball and softball teams are kicking off. Track won the state championship last year. So really, and it's a great school system overall. So really special place to be at.
I love it. Eddie, keep up the great work, my friend, and we'll have to check back in again soon.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.